I'm Sarah Hughan, joined by Managing Director of Environmental Clean Technologies, Sam Rizzo.
Hi Sarah, good to meet you.
Hi Sam. Net zero emissions is a phrase we hear talked about in many industries today. What the facts on the current hurdles to reaching a net zero emission world?
I think we have to remember a couple of things when we answer that question. Firstly, transitions are complex. And the solutions need to provide not only economic benefit, but also environmental and social benefit. We also have to consider that we are a society that consumes a lot of energy, and most of that energy for a long time has been very cheap and very accessible. So any solution, we need to be open to any solutions. We need to consider and recognise that sources of renewable energy, whether it's wind, hydro, solar, generally are located some distance away from where people live and where the demand exists. We also need to recognise that the ability to move that energy from one place, the source, to where it's going to be consumed is very difficult. And that the nature of the existing infrastructure which provides that distribution network hasn't been set up to accommodate that transmission. Finally, we also need to consider that in order to solve the problem and meet net zero emissions, we have to understand what the current status of technology is and whether or not that technology can be scaled up to meet those demands that we need.
What sectors do you feel could most benefit from emission-reducing technologies?
Primarily, I think there's three main areas: agriculture, industrial and manufacturing, and energy. In terms of agriculture, it's about reducing the amount of fertiliser that's being used, and fertiliser being created by the burning of natural gas and part of the process, and actually increasing the efficacy of the fertiliser so you don't need as much. In terms of industrial and manufacturing, some of the biggest consumers or some of the biggest producers of carbon emissions are the heavy industries like the steelmaking industry. So you'll see that currently in the world, a lot of the iron ore producers are looking to find a way to reduce the amount of carbon that's used not only in generating or creating the iron ore, but also in manufacturing the steel. And then the third one, in terms of the energy sector, how do we find a different supply of energy that is not based on fossil fuel that can give us the energy that we need to be able to continue operating the way that we continue to operate? So they're the main areas that I think offer the advantages in terms of reducing the carbon emissions.
And how does ECT's technology suite support decarbonisation?
ECT has three technology suites, and they all support decarbonisation. They're all based on utilising lignite, which is an overlooked resource because of its legacy associated with emissions associated with power generation. So it's the process that we go through that enables us to ensure that we have low emissions, and actually in a lot of instances we can create a net carbon neutral and net carbon positive product. So we're actually reducing the amount of carbon significantly, and that comes through really good engineering, capturing all of the emissions and using those emissions to be able to then generate, whether it's energy, agricultural products, or low carbon emission steels.
ECT's technology suite enables a range of applications. Which one does the company view as needed by the world most right now?
I think there's probably, to answer that question, there are two main areas that need attention immediately. We're focusing on the agricultural area. For us, that is, our plant is located in Bacchus Marsh in Victoria. It's immediately adjacent to the hinterland where there's agricultural production and consumption of a lot of fertilisers. The blending of lignite with urea creates a product that is able to add significant value in terms of being able to provide the nitrogen that plants need to grow, but at a low carbon footprint. And the technology that we use to be able to do that, the issue with lignite has been that it has a high moisture content. We used waste heat to dry that moisture content increasing the values associated with the lignite. And then we're able to blend it with urea. So agriculture for us is a big area. The second area that's very important for us is also in the industry and manufacturing sector. And if we look at the industry and manufacturing sector, what is really coming to the forefront at the moment is how can we create low carbon emission steel? There are a number of processes, some using renewable energy, where they take and create hydrogen as a separate process and then use that as part of a direct reduction iron process. Our process, which is patented as Hydromor, actually takes the product that we create, which is lignite, blends it with iron ore, burns it in a retort, and in that process, it actually creates the hydrogen to then create the low carbon steel. And that's very important. It's one process and it is an integrated process as opposed to two. Now, what that does, it allows us to do that much more cost effectively. And secondly, and most importantly, it reduces the amount of carbon that is used in creating the steel, and it also reduces the amount of carbon that's in the steel. European Community is going to be releasing a standard which says that from 2026, you're only allowed to have 2 tonnes of carbon footprint associated with every tonne of steel. The current processes actually create somewhere between 2.5 to 3.7 tonnes. So that's the current processes using coking coal. Our process, Hydromor, actually creates steel with a carbon footprint of 1.3 tonnes. Very important. It means that countries that will be exporting from their base, whether it be India or whether it be other countries, including Australia, if we get back into producing steel, can produce steel and sell into Europe without any tax implications.
Wow, really important and interesting stuff. Thanks so much for your expertise, Sam.